So, Alan, well, let me just explain something that Alan did not put this point in to big himself up. I asked him to put this point in because it's so important. So, yeah, over to you, Alan.
1 second. I'm just a bit dubious about whether it's safe to do this. It's okay.
Do you need someone to hold the mic for you?
No, it's okay, I think. I'll put it down a second. Just be gentle with this. Hang on 1 second. What I've got in here is probably one of the most disruptive bits of equipment you'd ever come across in this whole process. It can wreak havoc in a recording studio anyway, so I've got to be very, very careful with it. So I'll pass the microphone to... Don't touch it unless you know what you're doing with it. It's just to prove a point. I'll put it away because you never know what these things can do. 1 second. Basically, if you can conduct fine, I would suggest you go ahead and do it. But if you can't, please don't. Because I want the work. No, because
Alan?
you can. Oh, sorry, yes, thanks very much. You've spent all the time writing the music, you've spent all somebody else's budget on deploying an orchestra, you've got the best studio, you've got the best musicians, engineer, everybody, you've got the best composer, of course, because you're it. And then you want to get up there and conduct it. Now, I could teach you how to beat patterns, I could teach you how to conduct to a certain degree, but I couldn't teach you how to conduct an 80-piece orchestra for a recording session for a very important video game, film, TV, whatever it is. I think you can do it or you can't. And I'm not saying this out of any sort of ego or whatever. It's just something I found I could do. And the main thing is communication and relationships again. Beating the beat pattern and conducting, that's the easy bit. That's probably 10% of it. The rest is diplomacy. And if I've got time, I could maybe just touch on that a little bit. But I would advise, I mean, eventually, I'm not saying that you could never do it. Please don't get me wrong. And there are some composers that are absolutely brilliant conductors too. And I'm sure you've seen them yourself and you know of them. They're very, very good. There's some that can't, but they think there's a connection between them and the musicians. In fact, it goes the opposite way, I'm afraid. You're better placed to be in the recording booth with the producer, the director, or whatever it is, or the audio director, so you can discuss the music and you can produce your own music. That's where you should be. I've conducted 4 conductors, people that do actually conduct themselves. But on certain projects, they'd rather be in the booth with the director, because that's a good place. You're hearing the music as it sounds. There's so many things to think about when you're up there in front of all these players. You know, if you can cope with having unlimited patience, unlimited diplomacy, other things.
Also reading the room, right? The vibe of the musicians. Are they tired?
Yeah.
And also presumably to do with session organisation, that you might say, well, no, let's not try one more before the break. Or really, we need to record these cues like earlier in the day, or they need to be warmed up for this, or it's
the
all
order
that
of
stuff as well, right?
The recordings, all that kind of thing, it all comes into it. And also, while you're actually recording something, you can actually get to a point where it peaks, and if you play it another few times, it starts to go the other way. So you've got to be able to gauge that, and it's only experience can do that. Honestly,
cool.
The only advantage I have over anybody else here is that I've had more years' experience at it. And that obviously is a great teacher. Experience is a great teacher. and you learn to fluff your way through a lot easier. The more experience you got. So it's that is a very, very important part about the conductor's role. You're a filter between the booth and the musicians. I mean, I've had many instances where, just because in the booth nobody can hear, it's like inside your car, you shout at other drivers, they can't hear you. But the language you come out with is atrocious. I'm talking about myself, of course. But nobody can hear you. In the booth, the musicians can't hear you unless it's being fed through the headphones, and then you have a word with your engineer about that. But you've got to be very careful. I often ask, they can't hear me, can they, or whatever.
So if you've got someone in the control room saying the brass sounds rubbish,
the brass sounds
you
like
don't
crap.
say to the brass, you sound rubbish, do you?
No, that's right. You say to them, it could be the horn section or whatever, and their horns split notes. They do split notes. It's part of the nature of the instrument. Don't ever say, I had one composer, he said, can you ask the horns not to split notes, please? I thought, well, that was a totally ridiculous thing to say. They do split notes. All brass players split notes. The better they are, the less they split, of course. But you just say, horns, that was absolutely fantastic. There's just those 2 bars at such and such that we need to work on. And they go, okay, fine. They're working with you then. Again, that's relationships. They're working with you. But if you say, oh, that really sounds terrible, it's going to put them down. They're going to lose confidence. They're human beings the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
And you just got to think, how would I like to be treated? How would I like to be, not criticised, but guided through the process?
Yeah, and I think we'll move on to James's point, which I think is going to sort of bind a lot of this together, this kind of relationship stuff. But it's worth saying, isn't it, that these musicians are amazing, and we respect the musicians, right? They're not a bunch of robots there to kind of, they're not like computers. They are people who have trained for years to do this amazing thing they do. And they can take the most complex thing you put in front of them and play it perfectly first time. Yeah. And, so all respect.
As James was saying, London is the best you'll get in the universe. The London orchestras are absolutely fantastic.
I think we have to qualify that with the known universe.
Okay, the known universe. There might be parallel universes.
Okay, I'm going to move on.